lovely cushioned header. But oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
This is the Indie Reds Podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to the Indie Reds Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Dilling. We've got Bryan Smith and Boback Lotfalian on the podcast. But before we really get started, I wanted to send a shout out to our good friend, Zac Shorter. He's the one that put together that new intro for us, and you actually hear his voice there as well. Thank you, Zac, so much. I love it. You did a great job with it. And I picked up little nuances and everything that you put in. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. So it's been a while since we potted, and you know what, guys? I saw no one but me. There wasn't a lot to be happy with the club, and, you know, adding to that with a bunch of stress from work as well as what was going on in the world, I just didn't really have the energy or mental capacity to put together a podcast, record it, and upload it every week. So I'm just going to take the blame for that. But you know what? We're back. It's a good time to talk about Liverpool Football Club. So tonight we're going to talk about why we feel that Liverpool fell flat through the Christmas period and into early January, or actually in all of January, what has gone right so far in our panel's eyes to get us back to winning ways. We're going to cover the late window transfers, as well as look forward to Brighton and Manchester City this weekend. So we'll just jump right in and start talking about, it's about a downer of maybe a month and a half. Liverpool seemed to be clicking and playing well despite a stockpile of injuries, pulling out wins like we did a lot last year. And then we just had nothing better than a terrible month. Parking the bus was working. We weren't scoring, and the home unbeaten run was broken by none other than Sean Dyche and Burnley. So this was quite a frustration that all Liverpool fans had. And we even talked a little bit about it in group chat. So let's just go ahead and I'll start with you, Boback. What did you kind of attribute this slump of form to?
Well, I mean, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like, what really drove us for a solid, 2 years straight was this confidence and belief that we were unbeatable, the best team in the world. And, a lot of those games came down to fine margins. And it was that belief or that mentality that put us over the line. Kind of what we were used to seeing from the United of the 90s and the early 2000 period, where they just always happened to get it over the line no matter how terribly they played. Confidence and self-belief is such a delicate thing to have, and one little blip can all of a sudden lead into a major slide. Interestingly enough, what a lot of people contribute to, obviously our loss in form is the chopping and changing that we're having to do in the back due to all the injuries. Playing our two best center midfielders as center backs. Thus then having to rotate in pretty much steady midfield that played for 2 straight years, and Fabinho, Henderson, and Wijnaldum, having to chop and change every single week. Interestingly enough, during this terrible, terrible slide from the Crystal Palace game, which was I think shortly after Boxing Day.
It was December 19th, 7-0 against Palace.
Okay, well, I think we were top through Christmas, top through New Year.
Yep.
I think we won December 27th. Is that correct? Against Wolves?
We drew West Brom on the 27th. I happen to be looking at it right now. I'm not some kind of savant or something. I can't remember.
No,
that might have been Big Sam's first game too.
So December 19th was our last Premier League win before we beat Tottenham.
Spurs.
Then, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, 1-1 against West Brom, 0-0 Newcastle, lost 1-0 Southampton, 0-0 United in the league, and lost 1-0 to Burnley.
See, I'm hearing a lot of nils and ones.
Yeah,
that doesn't necessarily.
That's all it is nils and ones.
That doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily attribute that to a terrible defense. So, I mean, granted, a lot of it had to do with the opposition we were playing, but mainly, going scoreless in 4 straight Premier League games when you have the potency up front that we do is more along the lines of, I think fine margins. If you look at the statistics for, a majority of those games and some of the chances that we had, I think probably one of the most frustrating things was the opportunities that we missed. And, you could forgive, you could forgive Salah and Mane for being less clinical, when we're still pulling, 3-4-0 wins. If they're missing 2 or 3 opportunities, that's fine. But when it comes down to those fine margins where you need that 1 or 2 to get you over the line, that's where it's coming from. Because we've got the top scorer in the Premier League. We went 4 straight Premier League games without scoring a goal, and up until United decided to score 9 past Southampton today, we were top scorers in the Premier League still. For a team that has had trouble scoring chances, that is still baffling to me. So, I mean, you can really, really ultimately, I guess, to sum things up, attribute the slide to that, just those fine margins that we were previously
converting
always
those chances,
exceeding, due to our self-belief and mentality. We lost a little mojo and we weren't able to put those, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times in these games in 65th, 70th minute, I'm not having any confidence in the world that we're going to score and get a winner in some of these games.
No.
Versus, if you talk about the season prior or the season before that, if it's, if there's 30 seconds left in the match, I'm still thinking we might get 1 or 2. That's just the kind of belief I had in the team, and I think that translated through the players as well.
Yeah, Bryan, what do you have anything to add to what Boback said, or a different idea?
Well, I think he touched on a lot of good points. Certainly, it was a big combination of things. We mentioned the players kind of playing out of position. We kept kind of jumbling up the midfield and, bringing Thiago in as a new guy that, didn't really start a match in the Premier League until we got into this stretch we were just talking about there. I'm not a big statistics guy, but I think I saw something after the Southampton match, which was the 3rd match that we talked about in that little streak, that we lost 1-0 and right after the New Year. And I think it was after that match. If not, it was right around there. In those matches combined there, we still had more touches in the penalty box than any other team in the league during that little short window. Well, that's just a couple match window, 3-match window or so. But I really didn't think that we were too far off from where we, can be good enough to win games. Now, we weren't absolutely flying like we did in the Palace game, where hell, I almost scored a goal in the Palace game, and I'm several thousand miles away. I mean, everything we hit was flying into the net. So we had a lot of shots blocked. It seemed like we had more than normal, but we were still getting into the box. We just weren't getting as good a quality of chances, and the ones we did get, we weren't finishing. We weren't conceding a lot. Just 1 to West Brom and 1 to Southampton, and 1 to Burnley. Now, they're not exactly, teams that are going to strike the fear into anybody. But we had guys all over, out of position, all over the place. We had injuries everywhere. I think guys were a little bit timid at times. They might not have been, really going for it for 90 minutes because we were so thin. And, at one point, I think we finished a match with Milner at right back and Henderson and I believe Fabinho and Robertson at left back. Well, that's 3 freaking midfielders, in the back 4. So, the squad was a bit of a mess, and they fought through it. And, I really didn't think we were too awful. I think we're better than what the results showed. But, ultimately the results are what you're measured by. So, it's kind of silly for me to say that at this point. But And obviously the way we played the last couple matches, we'll get to that, was, looked like a completely different team, but still had a lot of shots, a lot of touches in the box rather, just a lot of things not going our way. A couple goalkeepers that played really well, things like that. So
Yeah.
Combination of a lot of things, but I think we were a little bit closer to playing better than what most people thought. But that might be just me. What do you think, Joe?
I thought a lot of it had to do with having to pull Fabinho, Thiago being injured and then coming back and having to play defensive mid. I think me personally, and I could see this. A lot of it had to do with goalies having worldies a lot of times, but a lot of it is that teams could park the bus because we weren't pulling them out. So mainly what I'm getting by that is we were relying so much on the front three to score the goals, and if that box has 10 men in the box, you're those margins are even finer than they've ever been. So what we really needed was somebody that could put a goal in from the 16-yard box, or inside the 16-yard box, to pull them out, so that the defenders actually have to defend and not just let everybody come onto them. And we haven't
so you're saying just put it in the box, right? That's a classic Jack phrase. But.
Maybe not quite, but
Well, we didn't have very many shots from outside the box. To your point,
and
the couple that we did seemed like they all got blocked, or they all went 50
Rosie.
feet over the goal. So.
Exactly, and or balls missing by fine margins. I didn't want to leap the blame a lot on the front three, because I thought they were doing everything they could, and they just didn't have the space. And you can't fire off a shot when the guys are practically standing shoulder to shoulder to each other, and all they have to do is stick a leg out and get a deflection. And so I don't know. I think it's changed. I think it really started to change. I didn't get to watch the FA Cup match as I was in Florida, but watching the Spurs match, what I did, Spurs came out to play. They didn't come out like a typical Jose Martino. I had just said it completely wrong. I don't know what's going on with me.
Joe, I call him Jose Moranino.
Yeah, Moranino.
In there for Moranino.
I mean, he didn't park the bus from what I remember watching, and the guys had space and they could play. And then we put 3 goals past them. It's just I guess that's probably that's going to go to me with it being a breath of fresh air. But I think, we saw it again yesterday, or excuse me, the other day, against West Ham. I mean, David Moyes has no problem parking a bus, and they did it. But the thing is that we got a goal from Gini Wijnaldum, and we got some space in the box. West Ham's defense wasn't as driven in and parking the box. They did try to get out a little bit more, but we still had like 70% possession. And that was the thing with every single one of those games that was close. We had like right around 70% possession of the ball, and there were like 15 passes around the outside of the box looking for that one angle they could get. I mean, at some point, you got to get someone that's dangerous that can just rip one, or at least put one on frame, and then it's going to have the guys come out and have to defend them. That's just my 2 cents. I could be completely off, but I mean, that's kind of what I was seeing or thinking.
Well, I think just to add a little bit to that, what Bryan had kind of mentioned, the goals that we had conceded in that little run, 1 to Burnley, 1 to Southampton, 1 to West Brom. If you think back to those particular games and those chances, those goals that went in, those were each the one and only chance that each of those sides had. Ings scored in the first minute of the game
on a fluke
for Southampton. Yeah, on a fluke chip. You have West Brom that scored on a set piece, which was bound to happen after us missing a gazillion chances, and then you've got Burnley had a freak penalty at the end of the game. Neither of those were we didn't really concede a whole lot in those games, so you can't really attribute it to anything defensive. But I contribute it to defining moments. They're particular moments in a game that can make or break the way that the rest of the game goes. And a lot of those just weren't going our way. They were, off the bar or worldy save by the keeper. If you think back to the Burnley match, is Origi's breakaway to end the half,
God,
where
that pissed me off
he
so bad.
he took that chance really well. Like, who has most of the time on a breakaway, you're not stopping short and trying to ping one in top bin from 20 yards out, but he was confident enough to take that on and missed it by a whisker on the underside of the crossbar. So, I mean, those particular moments, if that Origi goes in, we probably go on to win that game, 3 or 4-0.
Mm-hmm.
You were just mentioning the West Ham match, for at least the first half and the first 50 minutes of that game. That didn't look much different than the West Brom game or the Burnley game or anything like that. We played roughly the same. It was frustrating. 15, 20 passes around the box, fullbacks cranking crosses in for no reason. We have our tallest players 5'10". We're not gonna win a head ball against Burnley or West Ham, who have 6'5" center backs back there. But, we were resorting to the same things that weren't giving us any success during that run. But, it's the defining moment, a moment of brilliance. You just need someone to step up. And Salah, who pulls that same move every single time he's in the box, he gets it, he cuts it back to his left foot in real tight space and tries to just ping it and find that far corner. And he had maybe a foot extra of space than he normally would. They gave him that much space, and he was able to find that corner, and then next thing you know, we're off and running.
Yeah.
And just something like that in either one of those games, the Southampton, West Brom, anything like that would have turned those matches, I think, into your normal routes that we see against those types of sides.
So then, Boback, we'll continue on. So I think you're on the cusp of saying what you're really thinking. So what's finally gone right to really revitalize this team?
We've seen the ball go into net. You talk about if you related to basketball, when you have a shooter who can't find a basket, a lot of times tell them get to the line. You just need to see the ball go into the net, get a free throw. You need to see the ball go into the net. I think that's what a lot of our forwards and our team needed, was to see that ball go in the net again. We're like, hey, we're good. We're good here.
And it actually started against Manchester United too, though, right?
Move on from there.
I mean, it kind of started against Manchester United in the FA Cup match. I mean, we put in 2. We unfortunately give up 3 and go out of the FA Cup. But I mean, Bobby Firmino have played great. So could that probably be one of the areas as well that Bobby's finally?
I think we found a lot of confidence from that loss in the FA Cup. Klopp even mentioned in his post match, he said we can take a lot from that match, a lot of positives from that match. It was one of those matches, like you had mentioned, that neither team was really caring to be extra cautious. We both kind of took it to each other, and that free kick was just kind of something to be admired. There's no stopping that.
Yeah.
And that we just happened to lose on a fantastic goal. And that happens sometimes.
Bryan, so you thinking that maybe this slump's over, or we going to be on the cusp of it coming back again?
Well, it can always come back. I mean, you just never know. But we have enough talented players, and maybe starting to get a little bit healthier. Some more impactful substitutions. Jones and Ox a little bit, and we're seeing things turn the corner a little bit, which is great. So. I don't want to say it's not going to come back, because, who knows? Somebody gets a crazy card or a knock, or, another goalkeeper has a worldie or something. And then we all, kind of start wondering again. But, not only did Boback articulate well that the confidence is back up, and it didn't take a whole lot for us to get there, other than, a couple of nice goals and some good performances. And, mentioned Firmino. I think Klopp's done a pretty good job as well with some tactics. The match this weekend, that first half that Boback talked about, we played this kind of diamond midfield with kind of Shaqiri at the top of the diamond, and Divock and Mo ahead of him, with I guess Thiago at the base, and Gini and Milner out there, right? Kind of on the, and they were those back three of those midfielders were kind of interchanging a lot, but it certainly looked like a diamond to me. It just didn't work. I think it's the first time we really played that in quite a long time, at least for that length of time, pretty much the entire first half. So, it didn't work. And Divock hasn't been good. I was yelling at him a little bit from my seat at UJ's, to be quite honest. So, but we made some good choices and made some changes in the second half, and some of them forced by some injuries and some things like that. But another thing that we're doing that I'm noticing is we're playing some balls in a little bit earlier, specifically some crosses. So, one of those matches that we talked about during that kind of bad streak, I think Trent had like 18, 19 crosses one game or something like that. And all of them came very, very late, meaning, lots of square balls and passes around the perimeter, and you swing it across the back four once or twice, and then comes back out to Trent, and he kind of whips one in there. Well, as Boback said, they've got their giant trees and their towers in there, and that's, unless it's a perfect ball or you get a mistake, you're just going to be really, really tough to score that way. But, we started seeing Trent play balls a little bit earlier, like that goal that Mane scored the other day now against Spurs. I think their defender kind of made a mess of it a little bit, and Lloris was should have come out and got that. But early balls from the wide players are good, and, we're taking advantage of some of the additional chances we're creating with some small technical changes, and, the players performing.
I think just to touch on the Spurs match for a second, it's just we got, I think the momentum changed when that Sun goal got called for offside, which was the right call. I was watching that. I think I might have been standing in line at a ride at Disney World, and watching the match as I could, and seeing, holy cow, we just got outclassed there and just completely burned. It got the fight. We got saved by VAR for once. For once, we get saved by VAR. So I didn't want to put that. It was kind of interesting, but I think that really changed the momentum of the game. And that's mainly all we needed. It was after that we started clicking again, and we're all set. Just so before we wrap up this whole injury crisis craziness, we've had to play players in different positions than what they're used to. Also, we've had to pull guys into play that maybe weren't quite ready. Has there been anybody that's really impressed you during this injury crisis that stepped up and you said, holy cow, this is a great addition to the team. I'm really happy with them. And Bryan, I'll start with you, man.
Nah, nobody. They're all shit. No. Obviously we've had players playing all over the place, and I won't take them all because I'm sure you guys are thinking a lot of the same guys. But, I have to start with Fabinho, who has just been, fantastic in the back and played against some tough players and some tough teams and has done exceptionally well. So, I loved what he's done back there. Unfortunately, he's out right now. But, leading up, to help us get to the top of the table at New Year's Day, and then even through all those matches where we're just giving up one or no goals, he's been terrific. So I can't wait for him to come back. Hopefully we'll see him in the midfield soon, but if not, he's done a really nice job. Might be the best damn midfielder playing center back in the whole freaking continent, because he's really been outstanding. So I'll mention him, and I'll leave a couple others alone, and maybe for you guys, and maybe mention one of the last couple of games that's impressed me, and that's been Shaqiri.
Yeah, agreed.
That first half against West Ham in that diamond, I don't think he was particularly good. He had some moments, but the midfield wasn't working, which kind of made it tough for him. But second half he was great. He's played some terrific balls, not just that first time ball he played to Salah, which we might get to, but he played a ball in the first half into the kind of left center forward channel to Origi, which was a perfectly weighted ball that Origi was able to get to and try to get a shot off, and he's just popping up in interesting places. He's taken some really good first touches and playing probably some more interesting passes than anybody in the team except maybe Thiago. So for me, Fabinho obviously been fantastic, and last couple matches Shaq has impressed me, and I'm not a huge Shaq fan, but he's starting to win me over.
Boback, what about you? Anybody that's kind of really stepped up and impressed you?
Well, I mean, yeah, Fabinho is obviously the obvious choice. We mentioned this slide in January.
that particular run of form is what, most people were expecting immediately following the Van Dijk injury. And I think just the fact that it took 3 or 4 months to reach, a slide in form like that can be attributed to Fabinho, kind of just getting us through, especially some big games in that period as well. But we've already talked a little bit about him. Obviously, Jordan Henderson has been fantastic playing back there at center back as well, and essentially playing in any single position that Klopp has asked him to. He's played right back a few times. He's started off at midfield and had to end up at center back multiple times. But he's really taking that leadership role to another level. Commanding from the back like Van Dijk normally would. And I, to get back to the midfield, the Mr. Reliable Gini Wijnaldum has just consistently impressed me with how steady he's been for 5-6 years now, and especially during this crazy season where we have game after game after game after game, and he hasn't had a chance to take a breath. When we have these international breaks, he's playing and starting all 3 games for Holland during these international breaks, and then coming and asked to play 90 minutes 3 times a week for Liverpool for 3 straight years. So.
And Boback, he's playing a different position for Holland than he plays for us too, and he's scoring a bunch. So
Absolutely.
He's not just playing for 2 teams; he's playing 2, 3, 4 different positions.
Yeah, and much to what you had mentioned, Klopp had kind of changed the tactics up a little bit in the West Ham match, especially in the second half. I can't remember was it Arlo and Lee Dixon that were the commentators for the West Ham match.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
They had mentioned that they had noticed that there was space to be had from the midfielders just making runs into the box. Just go ahead and just run straight into the box. You might occupy a center back, even if you don't intend to get the ball. They had mentioned Milner had tried to make a few of those runs in the first half, but you could tell in the second half Gini's role had kind of changed a bit, and he was the one that was making those runs into the box, and he got a goal out of it. It was very noticeable, and obviously a nice little tactic tweak from Klopp, because he knows he can call upon the genie and make a wish any single time he pleases.
Nice.
I was really impressed by Nat Phillips coming in. I thought he's played well. But man, we've turned our this podcast into, well, at least I have, into a Curtis Jones stan podcast. I'm a huge Curtis Jones fan. I have been for a bit, but I think he really stepped up in the early parts of this injury crisis. I don't know if he picked up an injury too, because he hadn't been playing much, or he was or Shaq was looking better, or what. But I really, really have been impressed with young Curtis Jones. The first goal, I mean, he's the one that has the vision to make that pass to Salah. I mean, he's kind of covered up, but he has that little avenue, and he still makes that pass to get it in. Like, the first touch of the ball is a great pass that sets up a goal. And James Milner was even impressed. He came off for Milner. Milner was pissed, and then you see him go over and start cheering with Klopp. So, I'm just a huge Curtis Jones fan. He's got a bright future at the club. Really excited that he's stepped up. And if I can find a way to get him on our podcast, we're going to, because Curtis Jones stan account.
Joe, I'm going to add one to the list.
Sure.
A guy that I don't think has missed a single minute. He hasn't been always spectacular, but he certainly is dependable, and that's Andy Robertson. I think he's played every minute of every game since, June or something. He's been steady, and we should mention him as well, because he's played a ton.
Yeah. He's got a nice little link up with Mane too, I've noticed. They kind of understand each other. And they do this run where a lot of times he'll play it down into space, and Mane's on kind of the end line, and he'll cut it back trying to find somebody. Sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it's covered up because they've scouted it well. But when he does, he's usually finding Bobby or Mo making a run towards the penalty spot, and can pick him out there, and they can beat somebody that way. Because I mean, the skill that Mane has is just ridiculous. Him being injured, I think, is gonna really hurt more than some. I say that after we beat West Ham 3-1, but I think we'll get there a little bit in a minute. As we go along. So there's been some additions to Liverpool. You know, the fans, we've been talking about it. Brian's been saying it since we sold, probably since before we sold Dejan Lovren, but we needed a center back bad. And the window opens, and then, nothing happens. And then granted, I was on vacation, so I was just randomly checking Twitter, and I thought I read that Klopp said there wasn't money available for a center back, and that was a luxury. Then Joel Matip gets injured to a long-term injury, tears up his ankle, has ligament damage. He's going to miss the remainder of the season. We've all seen videos of Virgil working with the ball, doing that awesome walking juggle thing that I could never do, and doing weight work and stuff like that. And everybody thinks that he's going to come back. However, Klopp came out today and said no, that's not. He's not expecting Virgil to come back this year, and he doesn't plan to even register him for Champions League. That's how confident he is, because none of the doctors have told him that Virgil could be back this year. So during the West Ham match, Twitter starts to lighten up with reports right about halftime that Liverpool are looking to sign Ben Davies from champion side Preston North End for £2 million. So, Preston North End fans, they think he's going to be a great addition to Liverpool. It comes through on deadline day, but I'm not going to pretend to know the slightest thing about him. We've all seen the stats. He's been he's won just about all the personal accolades that you can at Preston, and he's not the tallest, but he's 25, and a lot of people are really excited about that. And these are like the Preston fans, because if you don't know about the geography of it, Preston's not that far from Liverpool, so they kind of have a little bit of overlap there in fandom. So they're happy to see him move up to the Champions League, or excuse me, well, probably Champions League, but to see him move up to the Premier League. And then a name came back around. We'd heard his name in the summer, Ozan Kabak from Schalke. His name was popping up a lot. People were talking about him, and then the Schalke season started, and he was terrible. Plus, it came out that Schalke wanted 30 million euros for him, and Liverpool weren't ready to make that change. He joins Liverpool on a loan with option to buy at the end of the season. So what do you guys think about those two signings? Anything that jumps out for you on either Ben Davies or Ozan Kabak? And Boback, feel free to correct the way I'm saying his last name.
I honestly have no idea. I would assumed Kabak, probably more accurate, but I've honestly never heard it said. I'm sure there's probably a pronunciation video out there somewhere, but
yeah.
I don't care to scout it down, because the Scousers will pronounce it incorrectly anyway. So, I mean, they aren't necessarily like the most exciting signings. It's not something that like, man, I just absolutely can't wait to see this guy wear in red and see what he can do. I think it's just one of those where it's like you take a big sigh of relief that something was done, because the Matip news was probably obviously the straw that broke the camel's back, but there isn't a fan out there isn't a pundit out there isn't anyone out there that hasn't looked at Liverpool and said they need at least one defensive reinforcement. Now, obviously, they shopped in the bargain bin like they tend to do when their kind of hand is forced. But they have, the thing is, their scouting is so good that they have the options to where when they have to do that, they have good options available to them. Klopp had even mentioned, I think, it's not a normal type of transfer we would make when he was talking about Davies, reaching into the championship for a 25-year-old center back. But, we're in the situation we're in right now with COVID and the financial burdens that are put on all the clubs, and this is a deal that we could financially get done, and once we realized that this was something that we could do, I began to get really excited about it, and excited about his potential and excited about what he can do for Liverpool. I think, Klopp's the kind of guy that doesn't necessarily like to sign the biggest superstars in the world. He likes to see someone that has the skills and the mentality and the personality that he enjoys having in his team, and he likes to mold them into a star. And I think he sees that could potentially happen with this Davies player. I mean, he's played in every single league, every single level league in England. So I think the National League, the Conference, League Two, League One, and the Championship. Now making his way up to the Premier League. So he's been everywhere, and I'd assume he's hungry to prove himself.
The last player to do that was Jamie Vardy, and look how he's turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. The Boback signing was surprising to me, because I think that, for me personally, I always thought that name was linked from his agent. I think his agent was the dude that's just whispering to all these Fabrizio Romano and all these guys that are like, oh yeah, we've talked to Liverpool. Liverpool are interested. Just trying to get a move away from Schalke, because their financial situation is dire. They've already talked about they're not paying players over X wage, and they don't care if they get relegated, essentially. So I think, for me, his name was a huge surprise, and then to read on that he's come highly recommended from. Obviously, we all know how good a friend Klopp is with David Wagner, who was Kabak's manager at Schalke at the beginning of the season. He said he came highly recommended from him, and highly recommended from I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he worked with Klopp at Mainz as well. And I think he's at Schalke at the moment. And he said, he's a potential leader of men. He's got that type of personality, which is, kind of the complete opposite I would have expected from him, from the kind of stuff that I had seen and the season he had started off with. So it was a bit of a surprise to me, but if you're getting glowing reviews from people that are in Klopp's inner circle, I'm excited.
Bryan, much like a lot of us, we watched a lot of Bundesliga because they were the first ones to come back after COVID. Well, I'm not really after COVID, but after the shutdown. They were the first league to come back, and a lot of Americans started watching Schalke because we had a lot of interest in watching Weston McKennie. Still a huge fan of Weston McKennie. Disappointed that he went to be second fiddle to Cristiano Ronaldo, Juventus, but that's neither here nor there.
That's okay. McKennie will break Ronaldo's leg in training. It'll be okay.
But when after the restart, I wanted nothing to do with any of the Schalke players. They were atrocious. Bryan, you probably watched as much Schalke as I did, which was not much, but his numbers don't really show that great. How are you excited about this? How are you feeling about Kabak?
It's such a loaded question. First of all, you're both getting the pronunciation correct. I watched Klopp's most recent press conference. And they're in England. They're calling him Davis and said it like we're going to pronounce it as Davies just because that's how we do it here in the States. And he kept saying, Kabak. So that's, I think you guys are pronouncing it just fine, but we can be honorary Scouser and just butcher it as well. But Schalke, I did watch some Schalke. I don't watch a ton of Bundesliga, but like you said, it was on, and I get way too many damn channels as it is. So I'll have the matches, kind of playing and doing some other stuff or watch for 20, 30 minutes here and there. I never noticed the guy, to be quite honest with you. I don't think I remember watching him doing anything of note. Doesn't mean he never had a good block or a clearance. I mean, I looked up a couple kind of highlight reels today, and of course, those can make anybody look good. But he's, he was at Stuttgart, and they got relegated, and then he went to Schalke. They will be relegated this year. As Boback said, they're a complete mess, and their ownership is basically thrown in the towel, and it's. I'm glad we got him. I wasn't expecting to get anybody. I was kind of resigned to, what, we're not going to buy anybody, and the financial situation's a mess, and that's just kind of how the way things are. And everybody's screaming about not spending any money, and I'm thinking, they're at Kirkby now, and then they built this massive new main stand, and there's no ticket sales, and we're not a club that goes into trillions of dollars of debt like they do in Spain and Barcelona and whatever,
Burnley.
but. Yeah, I mean, but so I'm thrilled to get both of these guys. And what I love about Kabak is, well, first of all, he's left-footed, which is great. I mean, a left-footed center back is not a common thing. So I love that about him. And he's only 20. He's 20 years old, and he's Boback mentioned his leadership qualities. That you don't hear that very much from 20-year-old players at all. And he's big, he's quick, he's played, a couple of years in the Bundesliga now. And again, for teams that weren't spectacular. He wasn't an 18 or 19-year-old center back for Bayern, but he was 18, 19 years old playing in the Bundesliga. So to get him on a, this $1 million loan, I guess, with the option to buy for, we're hearing 18 million. So that may or may not be correct once it rolls around. And he's only 20 and he's left-footed. I love it. So I'm thrilled to get it or get him rather. And Klopp had some nice things to say about, David Wagner, which he did say that he hasn't spoken with him for a long time. So the reporter asked the question, kind of connecting it to Wagner and how did you hear about him and this and that. And Klopp immediately said, okay, hold on, kind of timeout. And I'm paraphrasing this, but I didn't buy him because of, David said so, even though we are friends, but he did speak kindly of him. We bought him because we think he's a good player. In our scouting, blah, blah, blah. So, and he kind of said some of the same things about Davies as well, that the scouts went to look at him and they've looked at him many times and saw him play many games. And I imagine some of this is film or, recorded matches or whatever. We don't have, scouts at every game, but it's not hard to go up to Preston and watch a match. That's for sure. So, interesting thing Klopp said during his press conference about him is,
he hasn't met him yet. That was interesting.
The question was about. Sorry, Joe.
He hasn't met him yet.
Exactly. The question was about when can you get him into the team, and he's like, "Oh, they just want to come in and get started. We're looking forward to it and happy to have them." Kind of the stock answers, well, which is fine. Sometimes you have to do that with a question that you may not want to answer and kind of be held to. But Klopp said it'll be good to have him in and finally meet him. So Klopp, and I thought that was at first I kind of laughed about it like you did, but. What a great answer. I mean, he trusts the scouts to get a player that's going to, fit well in our system, so to speak. And, this guy's, as Boback said, has a ton of experience. And 25 is exactly the right age to get a center back that has some experience like this. If he was 28, 29, then, no, thank you. And if he was, 20 or 21, then we're buying two very, very young players, and that's a bit risky. So, I think they're going to be nice additions. I think eventually this might mean some bad news for either Joel Matip or Phillips, or certainly not both. But I don't know that we can keep all these guys for next year once Virgil's back and Gomez is healthy and Fabinho and Henderson are fighting for the 5th and 6th center back spots. We'll have to see what happens. But I was expecting nobody, so I'm thrilled that we got these two and. I'm especially excited about Kabak, this left-footed 20-year-old.
I'm pretty much said that Joel Matip is just too injury prone for Liverpool. I don't know I don't know how much time he has left on his contract, but I could see Liverpool looking to offload him in the summer. But he's going to need to get back and get his ankle healthy first before they can sell him. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is Joel's last year. I mean, heck, we got him on a free, so you can't really complain about that.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. But we're talking about these players coming in. We had some players leave too, or at least one in particular that's of note, right?
Yeah, and I love this move, by the way. 11th hour move. Taki Minamino.
Well, shit, Joe, I bought you a Taki Minamino Liverpool shirt, and I was going to deliver it tomorrow. Fine, I'll just return it if you love this move.
We've all seen how good we've all seen what Taki can do when he was playing for Salzburg, but he really didn't get in and get settled. I think a lot of it had to do with timing. He signs, and then all of a sudden we go into shutdown with COVID, so he couldn't really come in, get settled in a city he's not familiar with. I just think that this is a good move. Hasselhut really likes to play a similar style to ours. Danny Ings knows what it's like to be at Liverpool, so he can help him in that kind of an adaptation as well. I'm just a big fan of this move for Taki as a player, because I think that I think Shaq's leaving this summer. I think Divac's leaving this summer. And I think that we're going to need Taki to step up. And when Jota comes back from being injured, they're going to play a similar role. But I just think that I think a lot like Klopp. Klopp wanted him to go out and get a run of games. Wasn't ready to sell him. He's not ready to give up on him yet. Southampton wanted to buy outright, and Liverpool wasn't ready to make that move. So I really like this for Taki and for his development and for his settling in England. Boback, Bryan was just talking, so I'm going to come to you. What do you kind of feel about Taki?
Yeah, I think there's obviously probably been conversations between Klopp and Taki about his playing time. Obviously he would be extremely frustrated with the opportunities given. I think the last time he played was against Crystal Palace, and he started and he scored. So, for someone to not see the field since then has got to be a combination of, just maybe not adapting to life in England as well as he thought he would, and maybe not performing in training to the levels that Klopp would expect of him at this point. And a compromise was kind of had, hey, prove to me you can do this on a consistent basis on someone else's time. We'll see how it goes, and when you come back, we'll give you another shot. A compromise will let you play, but I can't sacrifice any minutes from the guys that are doing it in training, so we're going to have you do it for someone else, and a good side at that. A team that he can succeed in, a team that he's going to get plenty of playing opportunities, as well as plenty of opportunities on the offensive side of the ball. He's not going to Sheffield or a team that struggles to create chances.
Or Burnley, who's only scored like 3 goals.
Right. Yeah.
Since,
Yeah.
3 seasons ago.
Yeah, he's going to a side that scores goals. Granted, they give up a lot of goals as well, apparently.
Hey, it would have been like 9-7 if he was played in that game today. I'll bet you.
Very possible as well.
With a completely different game if the guy was an idiot.
I like the move. I wish that was the kind of move we would have maybe gave Brewster last year, or maybe the start of this year. Maybe gave him about half a season. Let him give a Premier League side that actually has some chances for him to put the ball in the net for 6 months or so.
Or even back to Swansea.
Yeah. Well, they're challenging for a automatic promotion spot. They're second, I think.
Yep. I have a colleague at work who's from Swansea, and he was mad that we took him back, and then he was actually pissed that we sold him to Sheffield. He wanted him back bad.
Bryan, how's he feel about Jordan Morris? Have you talked to him about Jordan Morris going to Swansea on loan?
I haven't. I haven't seen him the last couple weeks. He works up in the council's office. So
Did he end up
shoot,
making
sorry.
that move?
Yeah, it's a lone move. He actually came on late in the last match.
yeah, he
I
will.
guess so.
This guy's very tuned in to not only every team in his league, but just he's like the Welsh Boback. He just like knows everybody from everywhere, and can tell you like who scored what goal in both home and away from 4 years ago. So yeah, I next time I see him, I'll talk to him about it. One of his colleagues is a City supporter, so I usually just punch him and then leave. But you know, they're both lawyers, so I have to be careful. So
it's a
yeah.
That's another good move, I think, for Jordan Morris. I think he's gonna just shine, and then he's gonna get a permanent move, and MLS is just gonna count money. But let's
I hope so.
Brian, anything else for Taki?
Just one thing. I had never really thought about it until maybe the last couple of days, and we were talking about it at UJ's during the West Ham match. I had kind of chalked this up to, he must be really like not good at all in training. And I think that's really a broad brush in retrospect. I probably was not completely right about that. There might be some truth to it, but looking back on it, this guy signs, he arrives, he comes from, Germany via Japan, obviously, he's, has no idea what's going on Merseyside, and he can't even go out and explore the city or go connect with other people in the city or, folks that are from his part of the world or other, German speaking people or people that he just can't go anywhere. There's this virus happening and he can't even go hang out with other players' houses because their families, he sees them at training, sees them at, Melwood, now Kirkby, and that's kind of it. No wonder he didn't light it up. Who could?
Yeah.
And, very, very few players could. And I'm not saying it was impossible, but I don't fault him at all for, playing the way he did in limited times and not, setting the world on fire every single game. I hope he does really well. And I think it's great that we did this as a loan with an option to bring him back if need be. Somebody could come in and swoop in for a genie in a shack and give us big money. And we're going to say, okay. And then you bring him back and he can play multiple positions. I like the guy and I hope he does do well and comes back. So best of luck to him. And Joe, I've already hit the return button on the shirt I bought you. So sorry, bud.
All right. It's okay. One other move, I had heard that we added a U23 goalkeeper. To me, that just means that Adrian's days are numbered. Klopp really likes Kelleher as the backup. Maybe even Loris Karius is supposed to come back. I guess he's still under contract and has said he wants to fight for the backup position. So we'll see. Kelleher, I thought, is another name that we missed over because it's been a long time since we talked. I think we were just going to call him Dave. Brian.
Well, we do that sometimes. The name is
joke,
hard to pronounce. But, you did well with Kabak's last name, but you're avoiding Kelleher's first name, Joe.
It's
Why don't you, try to put in the upper 90 here? Go for it.
Isn't it Callum Kelleher?
Colin Keller? Yeah.
No, Callum.
That's it.
Callum.
It's Queveen.
It's Queveen.
Oh my gosh.
Like Queveen if you're an American or
Irish
North American.
Irish for Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin. That's right.
It is Irish for
Kevin. That's what we were doing. We called him Kevin. All right.
I thought you said Colin.
I know. I to be honest, I haven't looked at it in a long time. And ever since Allison's been back, I haven't even really thought about him. Sorry. All right. So
that's okay. I haven't either. Nobody has because Allison's back and
as handsome as ever.
Okay. You know what? Don't stop talking about it. Don't jinx it, Joe. Just stop.
All right. So looking forward, man. Next match, Brighton and Hove Albion. You guys have thoughts on lineups and maybe a score prediction? I haven't looked up the betting. I was thinking about it, but Brighton, the only team I think recently has hung one up against City, right?
No, they beat Tottenham on
that's what it was
over the weekend.
That's right.
Yeah, they lost 1-0 to City about 3 or 4 matches ago. But City's been beating everybody by a ton, so that was only 1-0. So
there we go. So yeah, Brian, you want to start? Any thoughts on this match?
They're interesting. They've they've got Lewis Dunk back, a center back who's just kind of a big, lumbering kind of Chewbacca kind of style center back.
Is there a better name for a center back than Dunk?
Maybe Queeving Dunk, but his name's Lewis, so we'll have to go with that, I guess. But yeah, he's often their captain, and Lewis Dunk, he's not the player to watch out for, really. But I only mention him because they've got these big, kind of tall center backs, and if we're going to play some balls into the box, we need to do so early, and it's going to be really tough for us to score kind of on corners or set pieces. But as soon as I say that, Bobby thumps one in off his head like he did against Spurs. But they've been pretty good recently. They beat Spurs, but then they drew with Fulham before that. They beat Leeds, and they lost 1-0 to Man City before that, and then 3-3 against Wolves. Back at the beginning of the year. So lots of 1s and 0s up on the results for them lately. They've only scored 2 goals in 4 games. So I don't think they're going to really come at us and go after it like a lot of or like a couple teams have done for 5, 10, 15-minute stretches recently. So I think we're going to have to work hard. I think it's going to be a tough game. I've said this so many times. If we score early and take a 1-0 lead, we can end up putting 3 or 4 on them. But I think they'll be thrilled if it's 0-0 at halftime. And if that happens, I still think we have a chance to win 2-0. I think it's 2-0 or 3-0. That's what I'm going with.
Boback,
so bet on that, Joe.
All right. Boback, probably too soon to have Davis or Kabak in the lineup. Maybe come in as a sub. I don't even know if Kabak's in Liverpool yet.
He I think he just he did all his big photo shoot today. Okay. So
all right.
So yeah, he's gonna wear number 19. I saw. I believe that's correct. Okay. 19. He wore number 4 at Schalke, Joe. So sorry to interrupt, but I was kind of hoping he'd wear 44, which I thought would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
To have him wear 44, and when Virgil comes back, he's wearing 4. But I don't know. Maybe that's the 10-year-old in me that thought the uniform numbers were kind of cool or something. But,
hey, I love Larry Bird's triple threes or double threes.
There you go.
So Boback, back to you. Any thoughts on this, on how we're going to line up, and maybe how you're feeling about the scores?
I mean, like Bryan, Brighton's the kind of side that they struggle to score. Really, they can. They're not a team that they're your traditional bus parkers, but they're very well organized defensively. They don't give up a whole lot of goals. And when they do happen to get the ball, they're able to keep it. They pass the ball really well. So it's one of those situations to where, yeah, if it's 0-0 at half, or even I think 1-0 at half, I think Brighton will be thrilled. In regards to how I think we'll set up, like you had mentioned, I think it's way too early for any of the new signings to really play a part. I don't expect them to really either of them to maybe start a match until weeks and weeks from now. We've got some really big games coming up, and to throw a brand new player that's never played with any of these guys before into the mix against Man City or Leicester or Leipzig or Everton. I think it would be a big surprise in that circumstance. I think we'll probably have to run out Henderson and Phillips again at center back for this match. I think it is a match that we'll probably need to make 1 or 2 changes just to freshen up a little bit. Make sure we've got all guns a-blazing for the weekend. If all things go well, if we start 2 of the front 3, this could be a 2 or 3 goal win. But it's all really going to depend, like Bryan said, on what kind of start we have. Because Brighton they don't give up a whole lot of chances, so we'll have to be really clinical.
So Boback, same with you. Manchester City visits Anfield on the weekend. Kevin's out. Kevin De Bruyne, that is.
Kevin Keller.
Kevin De Bruyne is out.
Is he definitely out for this match?
He is. He is.
Well, good.
Kun Aguero's out. I think he has COVID now. And
Does he?
Yeah, I thought that's what I had read the other day. So it's I mean, City still has weapon upon weapon upon weapon, but I mean, come on, when you have Kevin De Bruyne, he's one of the best players in the world. Out, it kind of bodes a little bit better for us. How you feeling about this match? And it's at Anfield.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to jinx us, so please don't repeat what I just said, Joe. But City haven't won at Anfield since 2003. It's a place that's their bogey ground. How do I feel? That they always scare the absolute shit out of me, but it's always a game that I really, really, really look forward to. Unlike when we play United or Everton, those are matches that I love, but I hate at the same time because the absolute dread that's involved if we don't come away with a positive result is there's a lot of pressure. It makes me very anxious and nervous. Versus City, it's just more of an excitement factor because if you go and lay an egg against City, you're probably going to get thumped, but it's not something that you look at and say, we must be an awful team because we lost to Man City 3-0 because they're a very good side and they play good football. Like you had mentioned, they can have one of the best players in the world out and not miss a beat. He's been out 2 or 3 games and they've looked fantastic in those 3 matches. So what to expect from them? I honestly don't know on the the front end. They do a lot of chopping and changing with their front players, especially with Aguero out or struggling for fitness or God knows what's up with him right now. You never know who's going to start at center forward for them. They kind of change that on a daily basis. Whether it's going to be Ferran Torres playing through the middle, whether it's Sterling, whether they're going to play Jesus, whether they want to throw Mahrez out there, who hasn't necessarily had the best of times against us. They've got quite a few weapons that they can throw at us, and from the defensive standpoint and who we're going to have out there, I'm hoping Fabinho will be fit. I think that was the expectation was that they were kind of going to nurse him to be ready for this match. I'm hoping we can maybe throw a surprise out there and maybe see a Naby Keita fit for that match. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's a match that excites me regardless of what kind of result happens. Now this could be when you're from a title perspective, make or break. I think if they beat us, then we can probably count out the title. But if we win, then I think you can put as favorites to go on and move on from there. So it always seems to be a title decider, even though we play them in February or November with 20, 25 matches left to play a lot of times. And they usually turn out to be. We talk about the 18-19 season where literally that was the one game we lost all season was at City
by like 5 millimeters
10 millimeters.
10 millimeters.
It's something that I'll probably be thinking about just about every single hour for the next 4 or 5 days, regardless of the fact that we have a match tomorrow.
Brian, I've got this at the Man City match at 0-0. John Stones has finally realized that he's a good center back again. Their defense is looking strong. I just, especially if Mane's not fit, I'm thinking this is 0-0. What are you thinking on this match?
I'll take that bet all day long. I think there's no chance this is a 0-0. I think both teams are going to score. The City is playing terrific lately. First of all, we should say this match is 11:30 Sunday Eastern time. So go to your local pub. Whatever you got to do, watch it. It's on NBC Sports Network. So if you don't have Peacock or like to just bitch and complain about Peacock, you don't have to worry about it for this particular match. But They're unbeaten in 12. They've won 8 in a row. In that 8-match stretch, I think they've only conceded 1 goal. And that was to Chelsea in a 3-1 win. So everything else has been clean sheets: 1-0, 5-0, 2-0, 4-0, 1-0 to Brighton that we talked about earlier, and 3-1 to Chelsea, 2-0 to Newcastle, 1-0 to Southampton. And so they haven't lost since Spurs November 21st. So it's been a long time. They score a ton. We're starting to fire on all cylinders here. They will not sit back. I think they'll be happy with a draw, to be honest with you. But they just don't play that way. So we'll have some space. We'll get to play a little bit. I know they've been defending well. Lots of clean sheets they've had lately, but I don't think this is going to be a 0-0. I don't. I'm not predicting like a 5-4, game of the century type thing. But I think it's going to be an entertaining game, and we're going to be ready to play. They're going to be ready to play. As Boback said, a huge game, even though it's February. And I'm going to say that I think we're going to win, and it's going to be, at the very least a 2-1, since I said both teams are going to score here. So
All right.
that's what I'm hoping for. So you're thinking something a little bit more low scoring, and
Yeah, I'm
and
thinking
maybe a
0-0.
draw. Joe,
I'm thinking
what's
0-0.
leading you down that path?
I just how the quality of the two teams. I think we've figured things out on defense. I always feel like even if he doesn't score, Kun Aguero always plays well against us.
He's out.
He's
I know,
out.
exactly. But still,
Yeah, he's
even,
injured. That was kind of just announced for sure that he's out for this game. So,
but what I'm also saying,
but they've got some other players too. I'm worried about.
But what I'm saying
Jesus.
is,
So.
I think it'll be easier for us to defend against, especially without having Kevin De Bruyne in there as well as Kun Aguero. So I don't. Their defenses seem revitalized, and I'm just not quite sold yet that we're going to bang them in for fun. I'd still love to see another Ox worldy, like I think it was a Champions League match that we won at the Etihad. But who knows if we'll see that or not. So yeah, I'm just kind of on a 0-0 basis.
The scary player for them at the moment during this 12-match unbeaten run is Ilkay Gundogan. He's probably the hottest player in the Premier League right now. I think before he didn't score against whoever they played last. Burnley maybe.
Sheffield 1-0.
Yeah, Sheffield. He didn't score against them, but before that he was 7-7 from a kind of a deep lying center midfield position. He somehow finds his way into the box and has been on fire in front of goal.
Yeah, that's like Henderson going 7-7, or Genie going 7-7, or Milner back in the day just flying in.
Genie can be at 3-3 in that match too. So let's just put that out there, because he scored the last match, so he can score one again against.
That's right.
Against Brighton, and then let's score one against City, Ginny. All right.
Got a nice tap in against Brighton, wasn't it? Well set up.
All
he's playing. He's playing in both those matches too. So it's that's not even a question.
No. That I do kind of wonder what we're gonna look at now when these guys come back in. How does that midfield look? Because strongest midfield, hands down, Fabinho, Henderson, and Thiago, but Ginny's been playing great and doing real well. So I don't know if you just rotate one of those guys out, but I just kind of wonder where we line up, and that's Klopp's headache. I'm not even going to approach that right now or worry.
Well, here's the thing, Joe. When those guys are back, Genie's not going to be employed by the club anymore, so it's not even going to be something we'll have to worry about.
Well, I'm not talking
unfortunately.
about. I'm talking about when the new guys come in. I mean, and we have a Davis Quebec center back pairing. But it is
I'm not sure that'll happen either. But yeah, I'd love to see Fabinho and Henderson in the midfield at some point this season. I just don't think there'll be a time where one of them isn't pairing one of the new guys back there.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment.
Cup matches maybe next year, but yeah. One good thing about this is City. By the time a lot of our listeners listen to this, the Liverpool Brighton game might be over. But City play Burnley on Wednesday the 3rd, and then we play Brighton after that. So, maybe Burnley pulls a shocker or gets a crazy draw or something like that. But you never know. I mean, that's obviously what I'm hoping for, and I will not be terribly productive at work starting at 2:00 tomorrow. But I'll keep an eye on that game, and then I'll kind of I'll say what I call kind of going dark in the afternoon, because I prefer to watch the Liverpool games, on a recording or a replay or something like that in the evening, and take a couple of beverages instead of kind of following it at work. So
I have my one-on-one with my boss at 3:30, so we'll see if I well, first of all,
maybe you have a conference call you have to go to for 90 minutes.
All right, let's move it along. Plugs, non-plugs. Bryan, you've been talking a little bit, so let's start with you on plugs and non-plugs.
A real quick plug to a person I've never met before named Derek, who lives out in Maine. So, and I hope he listens to this. Especially the Liverpool Supporters Club, of which Boback and I are a big part of it, and Joe as well. Lots of people that we've had here on the podcast. Derek sent a kind of a retro throwback Liverpool jersey to us, and we had a raffle at Union Jack Pub for it, and raised more than $500 for the servers and staff there that have done such a great job during this entire mess for a year now. We can't all make it to every game there, and some people haven't been in a long time. That's fine. I certainly don't get to go to every game either. But to have someone that we've never met before agree to donate this shirt to us, and we raffle it off, and the incredible generosity of the Indy Reds and all the supporters here, not just Indianapolis, but even surrounding areas, raising that money. So just a massive plug, maybe the longest just shout out or plug to anybody I've ever given on here goes to Derek out in Maine. So I want to make sure he gets connected to this podcast, and just want to thank him as well. And we've got some stuff that we're sending Derek's way in the mail here in the next couple of days. So big thank you to him for getting that started for us. And quick non-plug. I'm amazed at all the Manchester United supporters that we didn't think had internet service, but now apparently they do, because they're all going absolutely freaking berserk. So congratulations to them for finally getting internet service and learning how to use a keyboard. So well done to them. And you know what? And it only took a 9-0 win for United to finally get their goal difference the same as Liverpool. So that's both a non-plug and a shut the hell up at the same time.
All right. Boback, any plugs, non-plugs?
The last couple weeks have been big for me in regards to self-reflection and everything, and some kind of closer to me will know that I've kind of been off the whole social media train here to try and cut some negativity from my life. So
good.
I'm purging negativity, so I'm not going to do a non-plug today. And then my plug, surprisingly, is going to be for Union Jack Pub and all the wonderful servers and staff at that location that every day repeatedly come and handle our high maintenance requests of changing it to Peacock and making sure that we're all taken care of on a regular basis. So that's my plug, and purging the non-plugs.
There you go. I think I'm also going to just be positive. I really want to. We just got back from Walt Disney World, and I really want to plug Disney and their staff. They've done a great job of enforcing face mask coverings, making everybody feel safe with social distancing, having great markers and everything like that. They see people that aren't following the rules, and they let them know, and keep an eye on them, and they are not afraid to kick somebody out of their parks if they aren't. So we had a great trip down there. So I just really want to plug. And Walt Disney World, they've had a tough year. I mean, heck, what is it? Disneyland's still not open, and they don't know when they will open. And they're operating at minimum capacity. They have abbreviated hours. So much so that Disney has changed their whole focus on where they expect their revenue to come in the next for this year. So it's really interesting to see such a big company operate that way. Plus, they lost a lot of money because they haven't been having any cruises on their Disney Cruise Line, which is why we ended up actually being at Walt Disney World instead of on a cruise. So, really big plug to them for their authorization. Excuse me, for their for what they've been doing to keep it open. And keep things going, and at least let some of us have an escape from what's been probably the worst year of most of our lives. So that's something to think about too. Also wanted to. Well, I just forgot. Never mind. All right. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you, Boback and Bryan, for coming on and sharing your thoughts. It's really been good talking to everybody again, and we're going to get back to this more on a routine basis. I guess I could non-plug myself, but I'm kind of trying to be more positive about a lot of things in life too. So thank you, everybody. If you want to get a hold of us, I'll have contact information in the podcast notes. This is Joe Dilling signing off for another episode of the Indie Reds podcast. You'll never walk alone.